Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another Student Zone session here at Microsoft Build 2021. My name is Cecil Phillip, Cloud Developer Advocate, and I'm going to be your host for this session, so you're going to be stuck with me for just a little bit. Now, we just finished up an incredible interview with astronaut Stanley G. Love and also my colleague April Spade. So we really hope that you loved that session, but if for whatever reason you weren't able to see it or maybe you only saw bits and pieces of it, definitely check out the recordings because they're going to be available a little bit later on. Now, I'm really excited for this session, and let me tell you why. Because we're going to be bringing on some amazing folks who are going to be talking to us about some of the work that they've been doing around the Space Jam and U Legacy movie. So specifically, we're going to be talking to Grady Cofer from Industrial Light and Magic, and he's going to be talking to us about some of the special effects technology that goes into movie making. Then my buddy Sean's going to come on to talk to us about some student-run organizations that he's been involved with. So we're going to talk about College Plus and also Banneky. And last but not least, my colleague Cassie is going to join us, and she's going to give us a sneak peek into some new Microsoft Learn modules that have been inspired by the new Space Jam and U Legacy movie. So I hope you all think that's really cool. If you like that, go ahead and let us know how you feel in the comments. Feel free to go ahead and share your questions or any way that you feel about it. And while you're there, why don't you go ahead and let us know, well, where exactly are you calling in from? Because it's always great to know where folks are whenever they're watching these sessions. Now, why don't we go ahead and kick off my interview with Grady Cofer. Now, like I said before, Grady and his team have been working on the Space Jam and U Legacy movie, providing some of the visual effects magic. So I got a chance to sit down with Grady and talk to him about some of the amazing work that his team is doing, and also what are some of the things that he's learned as he's gone through his career and through this industry. So I hope you enjoy. Here's my interview with Grady Cofer. Hey, Grady, thank you so much for making this time to come here and talk with us today. Now, I know you have a wide catalog of tons of great movies and specials and things that you've worked on. So I want to start off with asking you, could you tell us a little bit about how you even got started in visual effects in the first place?
Hey, Cecil. I've always loved movies, ever since I was a kid. And it might be kind of cliche to say, especially kind of in this house, this is ILM. The first time I saw Star Wars definitely sparked something with me. There was a lot of kind of early movies in my childhood, like E.T. and Close Encounters and Raiders of the Lost Ark, all those great kind of Spielberg movies, of course, Star Wars. And the ability that those movies have to kind of transport you, and take you to some new place captured my imagination as a kid. But not only did I love the movies themselves, and I don't know if you remember, these might be before your time, they used to do these like shows, these kind of behind the scenes making of special effects, visual effects things. And I loved those shows, like they'd show like Dennis Muren kind of working with one of those AT-ATs, on that kind of miniature Hoth, if you remember that in Empire. And I was like, who's that guy? Who and how do I get that job? That seemed amazing to me. That seems like someone who kind of had a hobby and a passion and then turned it into a career. And so I think ever since I was a kid, I kind of knew that was something interesting. So I took my parents' Super 8 camera, and me and my friends used to make like little sci-fi movies, like on our summer breaks. And they were horrible, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we enjoyed it. We enjoyed that kind of process. And then I got introduced to computers, and that was super exciting to me, both video games, but also the ability to kind of create something with this piece of technology. My favorite Christmas was a Christmas where I got a hard drive, it was that kind of thing. I mean, that was like my childhood. So I started doing like 3D graphics and kind of graphic design. And it was just a hobby, and I wasn't thinking that I would do this, as a career. It was just a hobby, but I was very passionate about it. I actually went to school. I went to college. I studied English. I studied literature, which doesn't seem at all related to kind of visual effects, I know, but in a way, movies are all about storytelling, and visual effects. We don't just make images for image sake. We make images that tell stories. We want to engage an audience. We want to kind of evoke an emotional response. We want to make that connection. So I do think it's all kind of related. So I got out of college, but because I'd always been doing this kind of graphic design and computery stuff on the side. So then I started doing graphic design for commercials. And I kind of connected with this great commercial director. And that was creatively was this great experience. And I learned a lot during that, because commercials can be experimental, and you learn a lot kind of in a short amount of time. But what I really wanted to do was film, right? And that's kind of like eventually, that was kind of I was kind of course correcting back and forth and trying to head in that direction. And I got to work as a compositor in movies. And, compositing is, for those of you who don't know, but it's like being kind of a chef, right? Where you take all of these different things from different areas, like a render that maybe a lighter might have rendered of a creature, say, a plate that was shot on set, on location somewhere. And maybe you shot a few elements on green screen or blue screen, and you take all of these kind of ingredients and then you put them together. I mean, a lot of people know this now, but it's kind of like Photoshop, but with running imagery. And I really enjoyed that process. I really liked that feeling of kind of putting everything together and trying to make it feel like it was all shot at the same time. It was all shot with the same camera, and then it ends up as immortalized in the movie. So anyway, I did that for many years, and I made my way up to Industrial Light and Magic, and I've been here ever since.
I can so relate to what you said in the beginning about like watching some of those old shows that kind of showed you the behind the scenes. Like I'm thinking about like the old Disney shows or the old Jim Henson shows where they're showing you the puppets and the robots and like all the really cool things that they're making in the background. I'm just like, oh wow, that looks so cool. And like the engineering and the creativity that kind of goes behind that to eventually turn into that show or that movie or whatever it is that you're watching. It's always been such a fascinating thing for me to kind of see.
Kind of a peek behind the curtain, huh? Like
exactly. Now, you mentioned storytelling. I'd love to know, what are some of your favorite stories that you like to tell? Like, do you have a particular favorite genre or any particular type of stories that you really like to dig into?
I love world building, and that's in visual effects. That kind of means creating a place that no one's been to before and trying to make it feel real and make it kind of feel lived in and kind of organic and natural and all those good things. So that's one thing I kind of enjoy, the kind of the story about a place and making that kind of feel kind of honest. And I read a lot. It's funny, if you had asked me the same question about what I like to read, it changes all the time. I'm reading spy mysteries now, but I do my sci-fi thing for a while, and then I get tired of that and fantasy, and then I like to straight up kind of fiction. But at the end of the day, what kind of pulls me into any of those are character and certain themes that resonate with me with kind of honest portrayals of character and kind of the human experience. And that could be Dickens, whom I love, and I grew up, or it could be a modern kind of dystopian sci-fi, whatever, So it as long as there are good characters there and a good core story, I'm generally pretty hooked. So it's funny, when in visual effects you get a screenplay, say, in kind of the early days, and you go through, and usually you're just looking for like, okay, what are the big action set pieces, and how would we pull that off? And it's kind of, you can start breaking it down. But I like to look at it as kind of like, okay, what story is it telling? What are the themes that are dominant? How could you support that theme with the visuals and stuff? So anyway.
So kind of still staying along that line of storytelling, like I know you've worked on a ton of amazing movies like Star Wars and Ready Player One and now with Space Jam. I'm kind of wondering, when you think about like the creativity, but also the authenticity of their creativity, you have to think about things like, does this effect look realistic? Like when the wind blows, like the elements and the little particles that are moving around, like does that look like a real authentic experience? You know what I mean? Or the water that splashes against the shore, or again, like all these little elements that maybe some of us may take for granted as we're watching the movie, but like these are things that you really have to think about. And so as for students, as an example, that might be thinking about, oh man, like how much math is involved and engineering is involved and, like technical knowledge is involved. Like, could you share with us, like what exactly kind of goes into that process of one creating that world and that space, And then also from a team perspective, like what are the things that you need to do from a technical perspective to be able to give us that real world?
It's a great question. In in visual effects, it's kind of like the world is your classroom,
Mhm.
and because that's what you're trying to recreate. And I often tell people that visual effects, it isn't just about kind of plugging into a computer and starting to type code. It kind of has to start with an idea, and then often it's about emulating or recreating something that really exists and trying to do it, as you say, in a very kind of honest and realistic way. Beyond the kind of technical and the coding side of things, there's the other half of that, which is getting outside, getting a camera and taking pictures, taking videos of things, and recognizing the different properties of light and how things respond in light, recognizing the characteristics of the optics of that camera and how it changes that image that you're capturing. What story are you telling with that image? If someone looked at it, what did they take from it?
Yeah.
And the more you look really deeply at what's around you, and you start understanding the components, the aspects of what it is that makes that, how light responds off surfaces, how water splashes off of a surface, and the physical dynamics of those things, then you can try to figure out how to recreate it. But you can't do one without the other. A lot of it is just being a good observer of the real world.
Right. So it's almost like experience, right? Like you take some of what, your day-to-day looks like and the things that you kind of experience in the real world and see, well, how can I really tell that authentic story based on those things that you've seen and those things that you've, witnessed.
That's exactly right. Absolutely.
So now I have to ask you this question, right? I really got to ask you about Space Jam. So
Sure.
I'm a big Space Jam fan. I remember watching
Nice.
Space Jam like years ago. And then even now, just a couple of weeks ago, I had my son watch the original one.
Oh,
And like
wow.
he's all about like Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny, and he's totally excited about it. But one of the things that was always so like amazing to me, particularly at that time when that movie came out, was how the animators or the creators were able to tie that world of the real world with the real people alongside cartoons. It's
Yeah.
almost like we're getting like this mixed reality perspective. You know what I mean? And honestly, I'd never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, like, for films that kind of build in that type of those mixed elements, like, what is it like to work on those types of films?
Um, well, I mean, it's exciting and I love it. And, I'm a huge, uh, like Looney Tunes fan, by the way. I mean, I used to wake up early in the morning on Saturday mornings and watch the Bugs Bunny show, and,
Right.
Bugs and Daffy were like my best friends when I was a little kid. So the idea of bringing them to life was just really exciting to me. Um, this is, we call it like a hybrid movie. It's like mixed reality. It's like a hybrid, which is kind of mixing live action, like a person, like in this case, Michael Jordan, in this case, LeBron James, and either 2D or 3D animation. And it takes a lot of planning, honestly. And in this movie, it took years of writing, storyboarding, pre-visualization, where we use previs, where you kind of basically create the movie in the computer ahead of time, or at least certain scenes. So if it's a scene where there's kind of intricate interaction between LeBron and Bugs, we might decide, okay, let's previs this, and we get into the computer and we animate it and we do a virtual camera, and our great director Malcolm Lee can get in there and kind of guide it and share with us, his vision for this scene or this beat. And what that does is it allows us to kind of test it out, to kind of create it ahead of time, get everyone on the same page. It's super useful for all the different departments to kind of see a visualization of something ahead of time, so that whenever we go and capture it, we have all the information. So, but it's a long process, because the way people relate with other characters, it has to be you have to really believe that. That has to be a very honest thing. So so it's something, yeah, we put a lot of planning and effort into. But at the end of the day, to me, it's super rewarding because I'm such a fan of the characters anyway. So
Right.
bringing them to life and kind of watching them do their thing has been a lot of fun.
Right. And then you mentioned too that it's been years of writing and kind of trying to craft that story. I'm curious to see what has the past year for you and your workflow been like since we've been in this pandemic and we're working a little bit differently now. How has that changed how you approach how you do your job?
Well, it was a very different year, obviously, for all of us, right? But the timing was very interesting on this show. We had already wrapped the shoot, so essentially we kind of had the movie captured, right? We'd already prepped it, and for me that means I was living in LA for a while and at the studio at Warner Brothers and kind of working with all the filmmakers. But we had finished the shoot, and then we just started getting into post-production. And at that point, yes, the quarantine started. And interestingly, we all kind of adapted to that, and it became very much like this: a lot of video conferencing and Zooms and stuff. And we would share work. We kind of created workflows which allowed us to kind of stream works in progress, and we could share those. And I could draw over it, live, and they would see that. And then I could share my screen, and they would share their screen. And we became pretty adept at it over the last year, and in a way became quite efficient at that process. Now, right now, I'm in Premiere Theater at ILM. So the reason I'm coming in here now is because as much as we could do all these things on a computer, and we're looking at screens at home. This is a movie, and you've got it's great to see that on the big screen. So I come here and I could actually see the finished product on the big screen. And then sometimes you see new things, or you see things in a different way, or something that seemed like the right amount, or just had been perfectly calibrated, and you see it on the big screen and you're like, whoa, that's way too much, and then you make adjustments. But so yeah, it's been I'm proud of the team. It was a rough year for a lot of people, obviously, and I count myself very lucky that I was able to kind of continue working through all of that.
Right. And I definitely relate to what you said about being able to see your work in the place that people are going to consume it. Because as an engineer and as a software developer, I often think about as I'm building these apps and creating these things, how are people going to use them, and like what's their experience going to be like? So yeah. It almost sounds like it's almost a similar process. I mean, you're not building apps and I'm not making movies, but I think there's some commonalities between there that we could take between those two different experiences.
Yeah, agreed.
So Grady, we're starting to run a little bit low on time, but I do have one more question I want to ask you. If you had to say anything to any students or any folks that are just getting started in visual effects, and do you have any, suggestions or word of advice that you'd like to share with them?
Well, it's first of all, it's a great industry, and it's a lot of fun and super creative. And one of the great things you can do is download a lot of kind of VFX applications. There's a lot of software available that you can use under like an educational license and kind of test it out, try it out. You try, maybe you and see what you kind of respond to. Maybe you like 3D, or maybe you like modeling, or maybe animation, or you try something in some comp stuff, and see what kind of tools are out there. See what people are using, or game engines. All these. Oh, there's so many great things available and tutorials online, and especially under kind of educational stuff. Sometimes you could do a lot of these things for free, and yeah, see what you respond to, see what direction you're just naturally guided in, and go that way. Awesome.
Well, hey, Grady, we're just about out of time. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about this. I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
I really hope you loved that interview that I got to do with Grady. For me, it felt like that interview went by so quickly, and so I really hope that I get to chat with him again sometime really soon. But for those of you that did like it, definitely make sure to check out the new movie, Space Jam: A New Legacy, that's going to be coming out sometime in July. Now, moving on, I want to introduce you to my buddy Sean. Now, Sean is a computer science student, and he goes to the Southern Methodist University. And he's also involved in a really cool organization called Banachie. And it actually turns out that Microsoft and Banachie are going to be partnering together over the summer to do some really cool events for students. And so there's going to be a lot of prizes and challenges and tons of cool stuff that's going on. So why don't we go ahead and bring on Sean so we could talk about some of these really cool things that he's doing. So Sean, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's really good to see you. For folks that probably not familiar with who you are, why don't you really quickly introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, so I'm Sean Subaru. I'm from the Dallas area. I go to Southern Methodist University. I major in computer science and I minor in stats. I'm going to be a rising junior. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Now, like I mentioned before, you do work with a really cool organization called Banachie. Could you tell us a little bit about what Banachie is and how you got involved?
Yeah, so at SMU, my university, I'm involved in a scholars program called Rotunda Scholars, and it's a little scholar organization for mainly minorities and people of color to get acclimated to SMU. And so they seek out talent, invite them to the Rotunda Scholars. And one of the coordinators of the Rotunda Scholars, Matt, he introduced me to Erica because he saw that I had talent in the CS field. And I got in contact with Erica, and I think she saw something in me to where she felt like she could bring me on board as an intern. So I started off doing surveys and some data analytics and some data visualization for her for the summer, and then she kind of increased my role in the company as time went on, and now I operate as a data architect and data scientist of Banachie. So yeah, and Banachie is essentially a service that connects STEM with sports. That's primarily our focus. Oftentimes, STEM and sports are perceived in two different dimensions. Like there's no way they intersect, but we feel like that's not the case. So we like to make the connections between STEM and sports to make STEM more interesting to those who would be involved more towards sports and wouldn't even consider the two being together. So that's our primary focus. We have other things as well, connecting STEM with art and connecting art with other things. But yeah, our primary focus is making sure that these students understand that STEM reaches a wide range of different topics and a wide range of different things.
And as you're talking, I could hear how much you really care about some of these topics. Could you tell me a little bit about what was the thing that really sparked your interest to get involved in technology and STEM topics to begin with?
So I really got involved in STEM in high school. I always had an interest for it, to be honest. Like from when I was younger, I always had a profound interest in technology, software, hardware, all those things. But I really wanted to be a doctor. I mean, I didn't really want to be a doctor, but my parents wanted me to be a doctor. So I was on that track. Yeah, I'm gonna be a doctor when I'm older. And then one day my dad's like, I see you're really good at this technology stuff. Like, why don't you do something with that? And that's when I really took that was the go. That was the okay that I needed just to be on that track. And then in high school, my junior year is when I really got involved in computer science. But before then, I just knew I wanted to do something in technology. But junior year, I knew it was computer science. And from there, I've just been expanding my palette with what I know, what I want to know, and learning new things in the computer science field. So that's how I got involved.
And I could totally relate to like some of those things that you're saying. So when I was growing up, my dad was a doctor also. And he always had it in the back of his mind that his kids are going to be doctors too, and they're going to come be the new legacy, right? Like we're going to come take over the family business and kind of push it forward from wherever he left off. It's sad to say I didn't exactly go down that path, but technology is an amazing space to be in. And one of the things I really love about it is that regardless of if you have other interests or not, like technology is such an integral part of everything. So whether you're into, I don't know, cars or comic books, or you're into filmmaking, or you're into just doing experiments and creating really cool things, there's always like such an integral part that technology can play into enhancing some of those really cool experiences.
That's very true, and that's exactly what Banachie is trying to focus in on.
So, Sean, I know on top of Banneker, you also are involved in some other really cool projects. So I know you have an organization you work with called College Plus. Can you tell me a little bit about what College Plus and what is, what kind of work do you do with these folks?
Yeah, so College Plus is essentially a project that I've been working on like the past 2 years. And it's been quite the intensive kind of project that I've been working on. And it started at Google. It started at Google. Fresh out of high school, I got into this program called CSSI at Google. And me and 29 other high schoolers, we went to Seattle to an office and just kind of got to learn more about computer science and different technologies and stuff like that. And Google was like, all right, so you know all these technologies now, build us something. So me and my team, we were like, all right, what does everybody here have in common, that a problem that we can tackle? And it was the college admissions process. And we've noticed that the process is very tedious. It's not fluid. It's very aggravating to try to figure out, because we know all the resources are out there, but we don't know how to get to those resources. And it makes finding college and preparing for it very intimidating. So we wanted to tackle that issue one step at a time. And then we created College Plus, and it started out as a college finder, finding the correct major that fits your personality, things like that. Just very simple features that kind of streamline the process, just getting you started. Okay, what do I want to study? Now that I know that, what school offers that for me to where I could be successful in that particular area? Finding a college, let's say in Washington, in CS, I want a bachelor's. All those filters, we find you some options, and that was our main focus. And ever since then, I've been expanding the feature set. There's a free version and paid version now. The paid version has the whole feature set. From those original 3 features, it's expanded to about, like, I think 12, maybe 11 features now, all pertaining to the college admissions process, what to do to get to college, what to do when you're there, finding roommates, things of that nature. It's just an extensive tool for people like me at that time who didn't know what they were doing to kind of figure out a path to carve themselves for their futures. As our mission statement says here, giving students control of their futures, and that is integral for, honestly, their life, because it really determines where they'll go and if they'll be happy on their path to get there. There's a huge college dropout rate. It's like 30-something%. And we just feel like it could be severely lessened if students understood what they were getting themselves into. So if they knew, oh, I'm going to a place that's cold, but I hate cold weather, well, you're not going to be there long. So you mitigate those factors, it's smooth sailing from there. So that's what College Plus we want to tackle.
Yeah, when I think about what it was like for me, so I grew up in the Caribbean, and so I never had a lot of guidance when it came to looking at colleges in the United States, and kind of going through that experience, it kind of made me realize how much or how important access is. Like education is one thing, but then being able to have access to that education, or even just knowing who to ask, who to talk to, or what questions should I ask, and what are the right fits for me, and what are some of the things that I should look for within a particular college culture, and those types of things. Like I never had that. Again, luckily I came out okay. But I can imagine for a lot of folks, these are some really stressful things that they have to take care of. And so, we definitely appreciate you and your team, spending the time and making an effort to actually make this a little bit of an easier process for so many other people. So that being said, why don't we talk about your team a little bit? Because I can imagine you're not doing this by yourself, right? So could you talk to me a little bit about some of the folks that you're involved in and working with to kind of help put this together?
Yeah, for sure. So the top picture there is the original team at Google. We spent plenty of time building the app, and then I've taken it over since then. So our new team is the team I found at SMU. We got Liana Allen, our product tester, Matthew Merritt, the marketing manager, Jasmine Patrick, the creative director, and there's another person that's not in the slide, but her name is Sparrow Caldwell. and she's like the marketing genius behind like strategies and marketplace and figuring out where to put resources into stuff like that. So she's a huge integral part of the processes at College Plus. But yeah, I love my team because they are very clever. They're very clever, just knowing what parts deserve more time, what parts don't, where to go, who to talk to, things like that. They're geniuses. I'm so glad that I was placed in a position to where I could find these people and their talent. And yeah, I'm super grateful for my team and the original team members as well. They're doing great things in their respective fields, and I wish the best for them. But yeah, it's a bright future for College Plus with this team.
As I'm hearing you talk about these things, I could just, I'm just imagining like the amount of things that you have to do and, the amount of folks you have to work with and things you have to coordinate and, probably some skills that, as a technical student, as a computer science student, aren't really things that you naturally gravitate to, right? So my question for you now is, could you talk to us about some of the things that you've learned as you've kind of gone on this journey? Because I feel like when it comes to just basic things like organization and structure and leadership, like there must have been like tons of things that you're now learning about and just improving on just being a part of this organization.
Yeah, I've learned a ton, from technical things to behavioral things. I've learned how to be a good leader, one that has a good balance of we need to get this done at this time, to one that's I understand your schedule's hectic, so I'm gonna lessen it for you. The deadline is not too strict, whatever. Just figuring out how to accommodate people based on their needs, figuring out where people, like how to expose people's strengths and lessen their weaknesses to where it's not as visible. Team structure, communication. I've learned how to communicate a whole lot better than before this experience that I've gained with Erica. I've learned how she's basically been a mentor for me with marketplace strategies and things like that. Just a huge mentor in how to run a business, because she's extremely good at that. And technical skills such as like developer operations, being a better coder, being a better thinker, being more intentional with everything I do, because time is limited, and how to use time management. There's a whole list of things that I've learned and I've gotten better on that I could talk about. But yeah, to put it concisely, those are the things that I feel like I've benefited from the most, and it's the most apparent if you looked at me 2 years ago versus now.
That's awesome. Like it's always great when we can have these type of experiences and then we look back and you're like, wow, like I never thought that I was going to be able to do something like this, or I never thought like this team of people were going to be able to achieve the amount of things that we have. So definitely kudos to you and your team for, again, pushing forward and making some of these resources available for students.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For sure. Now, for folks that are watching, whether students or parents or just loved ones in general, if they want to know about College Plus and how they could, use it and learn about it and just kind of be a part of what you're doing, what are some good places for them to go to learn some more?
Yeah, so College Plus, we have an Instagram, a growing Instagram at College Plus Students. Exactly how I spelled that right there. And collegeplus.us is the website. You can find the app, both paid and free, on both the App Store for Apple and Google Play Store for Google. Just type out College Plus, one word, capital C, capital P, and you should be able to find it there. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Sean, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on, but don't go too far, right? Stick around because we're going to come back to you a little bit later when we do our Q&A section.
Yeah.
So now, next coming up, we're going to have my teammate, Cassie. Now, I love when Cassie comes on because she always comes with like the most amazing demos, right? And I'm sure she has something absolutely like mind-blowing to show us today. But Cassie's going to come and she's going to talk to us about some Microsoft Learn content that she's been working on that have been inspired by the Space Jam: A New Legacy movie. So Cassie, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm glad you could be here.
Me too. I'm excited to talk about XR. I love it.
I'm sure we could talk about this for like a super long time, but why don't we just start off with introductions, right? There might be some folks here that never met you before and haven't seen like some of the amazing things that you do. So why don't you just tell folks super quickly, like, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Cassie and I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, and I focus on AI and XR, and basically technologies that have two-letter abbreviations.
Nice. So I know one of the things that you do is you focus on this thing called spatial computing. Now, I have absolutely no idea what that is. So I want to need you to break it down for me. Like, what exactly is spatial computing?
Yeah, so spatial computing is a term that might be new, but something I think a lot of people are familiar with. And it really just means like interacting with the space around you with computers. So it could be IoT, and it could also be virtual reality or augmented reality, which I have some devices here to show you about. So if you have not heard of virtual reality is where you put on a headset that looks like this, and you go into a completely virtualized world that has objects, and it's using stereoscopic vision, and basically whatever you can dream up, you can build. Now, augmented reality is the mixture of the real world and 3D objects. So you might be familiar with Pokemon Go. I know my son is obsessed with Pokemon Go. He loves playing it on his iPhone. This is a HoloLens. So this is a headset that you wear that will actually put 3D objects in your physical world. And so when people are talking about spatial computing, a lot of times they're talking about virtual reality or augmented reality.
Got it. And so, one of the things that pops up into my head is, I know you also work with web reality or web XR, right? Could you talk to us about what web XR is?
Yeah, so web XR leverages WebGL and allows you to create virtual reality and augmented reality experiences with JavaScript in the browser. And I really like it because I think it makes it more accessible to start with VR. Some of the other ways that you build it, you need a lot of tools and IDEs and things like that, where with JavaScript, you probably have everything that you need for web VR to start building.
Oh, nice. So then that means I don't really need like stuff, right, to start working with these things.
That's right. You don't. You can, if you've done anything JavaScript, you can just download VS Code and you're good to go, depending on what you like to use. If you like using package managers or things like that, you might need to download more, but you can do vanilla JavaScript.
Cool. Like, I definitely love to see what some of this stuff looks like. Again, like, I've never tried it out before, so I'd love to know, like, what does it feel like to work with some of these things?
Yeah. Well, why don't I show you a little bit more? So follow me into the virtual world and I'll show you a sneak peek to the project we're working on.
All right, let's step into this sneak peek to a Microsoft Learn module that will be launching this summer as part of the Space Jam, a new legacy learning path. You can find out more at aka.ms/explore sports with code. And now let's take a look at how we created this mixed reality experience. The first thing I want to show you is the Babylon.js playground. You can see here the code on the left is creating the experience on the right. When you're first getting started out and you're trying to figure out how things work, this is a fun place to go try things out. So that is what's giving us this basic environment. Once you start to learn more and you're trying to learn how to do something, this is also a great place to come to and look at different examples to see how you can start building some different things like animation, for example. Let's now jump into what we're going to be creating today. So you saw when I walked into the virtual world, we are going to be building that Space Jam scene, which is part of the Learn modules. Here's the HTML file. We have a little bit of CSS, and then we have our canvas, and we're importing our index.js. Now we're using Webpack, which is a JavaScript bundler, and so we're able to write in TypeScript. It'll bundle the assets and put them into the distribution folder for deployment. So first, let's take a look at our index file. If you've written JavaScript before, you're familiar with this, right? Or really any language. We're importing our packages. This is our physics library. We are adding a procedural texture, which is the wood that you saw when I first walked in, and we'll look at that a bit more in a minute. We're importing from an environment class that we created, and then we're creating our scene and our engine, and because we're using TypeScript, we get some lovely IntelliCode, and then we're going into our create scene function. So here we're creating our scene, we're setting our arc rotate camera, so our camera is going to have a rotation motion, and then we're adding hemispheric light, our physics plugin here, so we are setting the gravity and adding physics to our scene. So this is the create ground mesh, which we saw in that first example. And then we're adding the wood procedural texture. So if I flip back to here, we can see in the docs, which by the way, the docs are fantastic. And when you have questions and you're building stuff, don't forget to go here and look at some of the examples. But here's the wood procedural texture that we're using. You can see there's some different ones. And we can also open these up directly in the playground from the doc. So here you can see the wood procedural texture that we're using, and you can see the code to create it. So that's creating our default experience. We're also using something called Photodome. And what Photodome does is it allows you to take a flat object or a flat image and wrap it to create a 3D world. So when I jump into the world, you'll be able to see what this looks like wrapped, but this is the image as it is a flat image, and then it's wrapped around that 3D object to create a photodome or a 3D world without creating a 3D model world. So this is my Oculus Home. You can see my boundary that I set, and you can see my app. So I can click the little headset, teleport down to the ground, and we are now in that world. And you can see this is what we set up, right? We have our button that shows our statistics and brings up our character, and then we just click on it to make it disappear. We can see our procedural texture floor, our default teleportation and movement with the controllers, and our photodome, right? So you can see all of this coolness that we created with an image. So thanks so much for hanging out. This was a quick intro to some ways that you can use Babylon.js and some of the things that we're going to be covering in more detail in the Learn module for Space Jam. Hope you check it out and can't wait to see what you build.
Cassie, thank you so much for sharing that video with us. I feel like there's just so much content that's being created around this movie. Like there's just going to be so much for us to play around with and try out this summer. It's definitely going to be awesome. Now, before the two of you take off, I do have some questions I want to ask you. So, Sean, for you, I know Banachie, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, is going to be working with Microsoft and some student-run events and some of those types of things. Could you talk to us a little bit about that? Is there anything you want to share about those events, and what can we kind of expect from those?
Yeah, so exciting stuff coming soon this summer. So there is a one-day digital event happening on June 26th for the collaboration between Banachie and Microsoft. It'll be a chance for pro gamers, pro athletes, and pro developers and students to talk about different things like coding, gaming, sports, and movie making. Whole bunch of different things. And it's going to be super exciting because there's the opportunity to win amazing big prizes. I'm not going to say the specifics on what those prizes are. That's for you guys to go and check out. But to learn more, be sure to check out banachie.com.
Awesome. And you're right. You don't want to let too much out the bag. So if you're interested and you want to learn about it, kind of like what Sean said, definitely head over to banachie.com to learn some more. Now, Cassie, you spoke to us about, WebXR and spatial computing and, tons of cool stuff. For me, I have no idea what do I need to buy or download or rent to get started with some of these things. How do I get started? What kind of programming languages and just stuff do I need on my computer for me to get started with building some of these experiences?
Awesome. Yeah, so you just saw Babylon.js, which is one library for building WebXR experiences. But you can also use things like C# and Unity to create VR and AR experiences, and using Windows Mixed Reality for creating for HoloLens and the Windows Mixed Reality headsets. You can also use Unreal for both of those as well. And then there are other JavaScript libraries. So you need more tooling if you're going to go the Unity and Unreal and C# route or C++. And with JavaScript, you can really just download, VS Code, or as you saw in the demo, that you could go straight to the Babylon.js playground and start learning.
Awesome. Thank you. So definitely thank you for you both for coming on, spending your time with us and talking about some of these really cool projects you've been working on. And for those of you that are still here watching, again, thank you for joining us. Definitely make sure you check out some of the resources that are available for this session. If you head over to Microsoft Learn right now, you should be able to get started learning with Space Jam: A New Legacy with some of the Learn modules that are available today that were inspired by the movie. And also make sure you check out some of the resources available for the Student Zone. If you head over to our Student Zone GitHub repo, you'll see information about some of the other sessions that are happening, the speakers, and tons of other cool resources. And there's even a Microsoft Learn collection that was specifically created for the Student Zone. And that has tons of learning paths and modules specifically curated for you as you want to continue down your journey as you want to learn more about technology. Now, coming up next, we're going to dive into some sessions about JavaScript and also Microsoft Graph. But before you all take off, please do me a favor. Please fill out the evaluations. It's really important for us that we get your feedback so we can continue to make these sessions even better for you. Now, you can do that in a couple of ways. You can take a look down at the bottom of the session page, and you can look for the submission link there. Or you can head over to the homepage of Microsoft Builds and look for the evaluations link, and you can submit that there as well. Now, that being said, I really hope that you loved this session. I hope this was really fun and hope you enjoyed it. Please enjoy the rest of Microsoft Build. Check out some more of our Student Zone sessions. My name is Cecil Phillip. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.